the fetters of this world. Loose your soul from the prison of self. Seize your chance, for it will come to you no more. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself.
Good afternoon. Happy Ridvan to those of you in the Baha'i faith. Today is the first day of Ridvan, April 21st. Good afternoon to those of you from the Christian, Muslim, and other walks of or paths of faith. Today's program, as we mentioned last week, will be on autism. It is Autism Awareness Month. It is also Earth Day coming up tomorrow. This is Earth Day weekend. It's also a service weekend coming up. And of course, we are also recognizing the Holocaust, which we spoke about last week. This week, autism.
Let's not ignore, real quickly, what our nation faced in the past week, just since our last show. By the way, it's Carmen. We can't go without mentioning what happened last Monday. We're speaking of Boston. We pray for families, all those affected by this recent event. You know, whether it be the person who still hangs onto his life and the judicial system and people who have been affected by this, whether it be a lost limb or just a lost loved one. We just pray for those families. We pray positive and healing and comfort to come to the city and those people affected. So just quickly wanted to touch on that because that was such a great event that we may touch on a little on another show, but we just want to recognize, or even later if we have time, but peace, comfort to those families and to that event.
I would suggest, for my own self, that I will touch on Boston as a subject of autism. Okay? Because what happened in Boston, what happened with all terrorists, or with all of those who thought they had lost their voice, and then they result to an out-of-body experience, which is when you start to actually do physical damage or harm to others, you know, is a source of
maybe
or
a
reference of autism.
Not even losing the voice, but maybe you never found a voice.
Yes.
Because that is a part of what, I guess once we define what autism is,
yes,
we can get further understanding of why we're going in this direction, but it is about a voice.
It's about communication.
It is about a voice, autism. And yes, an expression is what a voice is. So we have to develop. I just wanted to add, to inject that, sorry. Develop. That's all.
Yes.
That's all I'll say.
The only thing I wanted to add to it is about a voice, but it is about the voice. But autism is about all sources of communication, whether it's through the eyes, ears, nose, voice, what have you, and feeling. It's through all sensory. Autism touches the entire individual group, or what have you. But like Carmen was mentioning earlier, let's look at the definition of autism. Okay. First, I just do a little background history. Okay. 1911, Eugene Bleuer. I can't pronounce it. He's a Swiss psychiatrist. Bleuer. I don't know. That's maybe my autism. I can't pronounce this word properly. Okay. He was the first to refer to the symptoms in schizophrenia. Okay. And what they did is they noticed that at times schizophrenics could go off to this very place of selfishness where they were just zoned out. You know what I mean? Okay. And so they got the word autism from the Latin word autos, okay, meaning self. Yeah. And so they described it as that part where the schizophrenic goes, where they just stop responding. Sometimes your kids do too. You know, when you're talking to them and they're zoned out. Yeah. That is a resemblance to what autism looks like.
Yes.
Okay, and that's why our show is called Autism, but not just physical. You know what I mean?
So there is a disorder of neural development characterized by impaired social interaction.
Okay.
What else would have to go along with that?
All right.
Wikipedia has that as a starter.
All right, I'll just read out the definition. Autism is a pervasive developmental disorder characterized
Pervasive.
by pervasive, characterized by severe deficits in social interaction and communication, by an extremely limited range of activities and interests, and often by the presence of repetitive, stereotyped behaviors. I'm going to read this definition one more time, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Because it says things that go to the physical autism. I work with children or youth who, suffer from this. But I also work in the quote-unquote regular population where I've seen it socially. And that's why this subject is very near and dear to me. I just see it as something that even I suffer from, okay? So I'm going to read the definition one more time. And let's see if you, me, and the listeners hear ourselves or the company we keep at some time suffering from a little bit of autism, okay? A pervasive developmental disorder.
Pervasive.
A pervasive developmental disorder characterized by severe deficits in social interaction and communication, by an extremely limited range of activities and interests, and often by the presence of repetitive, stereotyped behaviors. All of those words to me were they can go either way. It can go into just autism, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, or the social. And that is what we're going to be really discussing, okay? Of course, it is Autism Awareness Month this month, okay? April 2nd, 2013 was Autism Awareness Day. I myself, at Barack Source for Learning, we belong to our organization, it's called Light Up Blue. And you've probably seen it on your local television stations this month. Because I've seen quite a few of different commercials that were geared to bringing recognition to the epidemic that is being called autism. Okay? So, we have a packet that we got in school that I thought was wonderful. So I couldn't wait to use this packet because it's full of information at the end that you can use, as a parent. It was really useful for students to understand because, you work in other classrooms and then you take the kids to the playground and they're in school, of course, and so they're going to become social, and so an awareness to these things are interesting.
I cannot help. This is the third show now. So the first show we started off with renewal. We talked about rebuilding. What this connects. All of this is continuing to connect.
The
dots that we started with. We spoke of the issue of what it is to be reborn or to be disengagement in education. These students coming that are autistic and to deal with other youth or other individuals that they're in a learning environment and sharing the development of some of these things that you described earlier. So I don't know if it would be possible. Are we going to have some examples maybe of, I don't know, some people may not know a lot about autism. We'd like you to be able to become more aware. That's what the month is about. April is about awareness. So some of you will have some links for you can share, but
what I'll definitely do.
This is a pervasive.
What does pervasive mean?
That's what I remember us talking about on the sidebar. But, But it's permeating. I mean, this is a influence or a physical effect that's spreading widely throughout an area. So there has been an increase, from what I understand, of awareness from the beginning of even recognizing this autism and Asperger's syndrome and all these associated
Hans Asperger,
mental,
right? He identified it also,
developmental
right?
Illnesses, disorders. So I heard that word pervasive, and I thought about that. That is very key. That has a lot to do with the symbols also. I understand that they're like the symbols of a puzzle pieces, putting together the puzzle pieces.
Yeah, the symbols for autism of course, is a ribbon, but the ribbon has puzzle pieces in it, okay? And the autism awareness ribbon, the puzzle pieces and the patterns symbolize the mystery and complexity of autism, you know, and the different colors and shapes represent the diversity of people and families living with autism, you know. The brightness, there's a bright blue background, lighted up blue, right? The brightness of this awareness ribbon signals, it signifies hope. Excuse me. Because there is hope. Now, for instance, I work with youth, and we educate them on writing, you know, and you would think, oh, could someone with a deficiency perhaps write? Or a disorder, or what have you. I don't know I don't want to label it improperly and get, you know, but you know what I mean. Can someone with a disorder write? And yes, they can. They you know, I don't want to say they, because they're we who suffer from all types of autism, whether it's a social autism, where we don't want to communicate with others, we can, or if it's real autism, you know, that we're speaking of here for Autism Awareness Month, yes, you can still function. There is hope. But you have to address the issue. You know, we technically do one-on-one, and where it's heavy addressing an issue. Just imagine through life if you have a child who's troubling you because they're socially awkward, where it seems like it's a social autism, but they had a one-on-one who identified it and was on them. You know what I mean? You know, that type of a support system would change things for anyone, because you know it's only been diagnosed or used for 100 years, and it's only been actually a separate DSM-5 or DSM-5 TR type thing since 1940. You know what I mean? So we're only like, you know, young into diagnosing and actually labeling how many older people, because normally with autism we look at children, but there's some kids who, someone might be 100 years old by now, still alive and suffering from this disease. Which means that it's been on for longer, you know what I mean? So, let's talk about autism. I'm going to go back to the definition, okay? It's a pervasive developmental disorder, meaning as a disorder, it continues to spread. You know what I mean? If not detected, and if not treated, it can turn into other symptoms. It's pervasive. It keeps going on.
So treatment, like what are some of the treatments that you're speaking of?
Well, definitely,
Some treatment.
definitely, since autism is a sensory thing, one thing you have to do is identify what type of response the individual will be willing to receive. You understand? Because autism causes, it's either going to be a lot of pressure on the person, so that they're it's really intense, you know, or they're not notice it at all. It's love or hate. You know what I mean? Textures. Either they like the texture of grass, or they do not like grass at all. You understand? You will not be taking them to the park. So, but you'll have to recognize that. You'll have to say, oh, well, if we have a playground, we're going to have a sensory type place. We may have to have it gardened, with a gate around it, so that no one goes trampling through it. And then those who can smell, or like odor, can smell it. You know what I mean? It's sensory. So you have to identify what the issue is when it comes to the autism itself. That even goes into the social autism. Okay? So, you know, I don't want to keep talking about it because, you know, I'm not an expert. But I do know these are the things that they train us to do. To help us.
As what? Maybe have you gotten to announce, have we discussed the fact that you teach and...
Yes, I educate or help out, you know, I try to help youth who suffer with autism in Durham public schools. I don't want to say any more because then, you know, you're like, oh, well then, you know, for liability reasons.
But it's good for our audience to know that you're not considering yourself an expert, but an individual that works in the field, and you're officially documented. So this is a process that you're learning as an educator. You're learning also.
Yeah.
You are getting training from your employer.
Resources and employer, right? Definitely.
You are becoming more aware as a community member, as a teacher, as a
Brock Source for Learning representative.
Yes.
Because this is what we do.
I should say.
We do
Yes.
community building, and that's one of the reasons why we go into the school for educational purposes. And so it's definitely
Relationships.
helping us to become more aware of how we can serve our entire community, because it's pervasive. Okay.
It's good to be aware
It's very
of
good to be
where
aware.
you're working. And when we're looking at the developmental, I guess some of the repetitive actions that some of the children may do, it helps you to become more aware of the way that those children are thinking, I
Right.
would imagine, and even the child to become more aware of these different habits.
Patterns or
patterns,
yeah.
yes, to make them aware of them, because that's the developmental.
The behavioral part that
You
you
know,
can.
yes,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Very interesting as
Yeah.
teachers that you're giving them information for them to learn about information in themselves at the same time.
Right.
Which it could be something that is done with ease by a child that does not suffer with these type of developmental. Yes.
Oh, you know what?
I'm starting to understand.
I understand when you were saying, because you made me think. Okay, when you went in the other classrooms I used to work in, doing the same thing, education. It was very important. I find it now that autism awareness has made it even more important to me to understand the social communication breakdown that regular classrooms face. Because with this testing process that some youth go through, they get an anxiety, okay? And so anyone who gets anxiety from testing will then go through the symptoms of post-traumatic stress, anxiety, stress disorder, and those are the exact symptoms that autism encapsulates, okay? Anxiety.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? There's the 3 stages that you go through naturally. You know what I'm saying? And all of us do it. Once we have a fear and our heart rate goes up, that anxiety sets in, right?
Yeah, I'm starting to hear the pattern.
So so when you go out to the regular classroom and they are being judged, and graded, because it also says it's a severe deficit in social interaction and communication. So like you ask them a question, do you understand? Which is an interaction type thing. They don't say anything. Okay, you give them a math problem and you ask them. The last question on the worksheet will say, now you explain how you get to this. Well, they cannot actually communicate it back properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at it as an education specialist, and sometimes I put that lens on, you go, how odd that their communication is so deficit. It's a developmental disorder almost, because there's so many of the youth, even when you go to high school and middle school, when I was 7, I was going to every school, and I was like, whoa, it's odd that so many youth have this deficit in their social interaction and communication. And I know that sounds funny because we're doing a radio blog, which, but Barack Source for Learning encourages, as you know from our youth programs, and from any program we do, us to come together and communicate and then do action programs. As this blog should encourage that as well. This radio blog, excuse me. But
And how's that connect to the autism? So how do we connect that?
How do you connect the social interaction and communication?
Just where we are right now.
Right. Normally, social interaction and communication are what the deficit are in autism. So they either do not socially interact, okay? What they do is to themselves, okay? And when the communication is done from them, and we are the receiver, it's harder to understand what they're communicating. They may only do a sound. You know what I mean? They may do an inappropriate gesture for communication. They may have to do sign language, and I may have to understand. In my case, I might have to understand sign language. And if you tailor that to the social realm where you work with quote unquote normal kids, they may be meaner than they need to be. They might be bullies. You know? So that's where I was going with that. I don't want to go too far out. But it does have to do with social interactions and communications, you know, and an extremely limited range of activities or interests. They just want to do the same thing over and over again sometimes. You know? And often by the presence of repetitive, stereotyped behaviors. Yeah. Autism. Autism. Okay? So, while we're talking about autism, do you ever recognize or have you ever seen these types of symptoms going on, maybe in the workplace? You know.
Wow. I'm actually more on the side. I'm on the sidelines on this one because my expectation is to really look at autistic people the way that I'm perceiving. Awareness is not necessarily where you are as far as what you know. It's about continuing to learn. I can actually say that I have no involvement with people. Like, I'm an average person. I have no involvement. And so as I'm listening, I'm more prone to listen and learn. And I think that's a part of being aware also, because I'm become struck, and that's why I actually paused for a moment, because I'm struck by the fact that I see autism as it is, as far as we become more aware, we may see some of these subtleties in everyday, quote, everyday people, while you may know someone who is autistic and it affects your life. So as you're saying this, I'm having to make sure that there is a distinction. There is a distinction, and I see the patterns that you're describing, and you inquire of me to ask if I've seen these types of personalities. Have I seen these certain types of actions? And I would have to say no, but in general.
Right.
However,
right.
As I learn more about autism, as autism is something that is a mystery.
It is a mystery.
And so as you're saying this, I really could not answer that without, I have to answer it in that way.
Right.
In the way that I have just responded, it is not a straightforward answer. But it is my response to your question.
Right. I think it's a very good response, because it's probably the same response that I could give about autism, because, I'm just familiar with it now because of how much I'm really working with the actual, word. You know what I mean? I do know that in the chart that they gave us, this handout that they gave us, this packet, which was well done, it went into allowing the individual who has the packet to question whether or not they were familiar with it. And now this is information so that you can become more familiar with it, because it asks, page 10, it goes, how sensitive were you? And this is a packet that we use for the kids, so they can get in touch at a younger age with things like this. You know what I mean? It's informational. It goes into, when it goes into the sight, sound, touch, smell, or taste, it asks, were you extremely sensitive to this?
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Sometimes people go, I don't like that, and sometimes we get mean. Well, what do you mean you don't like it? But we never even knew. You know how it is? You know how we picked on people for things that we couldn't really put a word on.
So it sounds like you're suggesting that we just, in Autism Awareness Month, that we would not just think about those people over there that have autism and, see them as so far away and so unrelated. Instead, in our April being our awareness month for autism, that we would reflect on some of these developmental social developments in an individual's life regarding communication, that it may have affected an individual's life in such a way that they have communication issues.
Yeah.
They are developmental issues, but we have not perhaps put those puzzle pieces together that connect those that seem to be on the marginalized.
Right.
Again, all of this coming together, it really does, to me, connect with that Boston thing again.
Right. I'm glad you said that. That's why I wanted to go to that. Yeah.
You had inquired earlier, and I guess with all due respect for what autism is, and all of the studies that have been done by universities and academia world, universal world, collectively, as far as what autism is, and Asperger and other related autism, and just, it's such a good thing for us to have these things like a whole month. People may not be aware, maybe some websites or something to make sure that we hit on that.
Yeah.
But this is a really good discussion. It's very thought-provoking, and all in all, we do challenge you guys to Barack Source for Learning. This is what we're about. We care about just becoming more aware. This is what we're about, right?
Yeah.
This is how we grow. This is how we develop as a people, as a people, a human race.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Last week we talked about the Holocaust. It's very easy to marginalize something, a group, and then just get rid of them. Anyway, thank you for listening. We'd like you guys, if you are listening, if you want to respond to us, you can either respond to baracksourcefordlearning@gmail.com. We have Twitter also, BarackSFL at Twitter. Any way that you can possibly just say hi. We listen to your show, we think it's interesting, what have you. Feel free to do that. We also have another line that we'll use where we can do call-ins. So as we pick up momentum, we'll probably do call-ins, just to keep it interesting. Because we'd like to hear perspective.
And we really need to hear from you guys, because if this is not of interest, it's boring, it's not, really challenging us, we don't know who the audience is anyway. So you guys please communicate.
Right. And we also, like this show will transform into a youth program coming up. April is our first month. So, we're giving them like a retrieval type thing as we figure out how to do this show. But, it's youth-oriented, and that means all people who are young at heart. Because we don't do any ageism here. So, if you want to be a guest and you want issues you have issues you want to talk about, we encourage you to send it, because it is about dialogue as well. Here are some websites and some books that, can help you learn more about autism. The first one is My Name is David, and you can find that on youtube.com. Okay? And World of Jenks, that's on MTV, if you guys have ever seen that. There was a specific aired one called Can't Make Me Be. Okay? That was about autism. There are several websites and different authors who wrote stuff. I'm just going to give you the names of their book, of some of the books, okay? Russell is Extra Special, a book about autism for children. Okay? My Brother Sammy. This is Asperger Syndrome. Joey and Sam. And there's several other books, if you're interested in finding out more about autism. Once again, if you want to call in or or contact us through email, Barack Source for Learning. Actually, you can do it at Live, Yahoo, any one of those.
Put something on the Facebook, anywhere you want, anywhere, just communicate.
Twitter, Tumblr, as you see, we do a lot of communication. So does that mean that we are non-autistic because we are communicating through every range as possible?
Hey,
sight, sound, and
wide open.
That's what's up. Anyway.
But hey, guys, don't forget, it's Earth Month. It's not Earth Month. It basically is Earth Month. We usually do think of April in that way, but really it's Earth Day tomorrow. Again, I think it was mentioned earlier, but get outside, get some fresh air, go to the farmer's market.
Yeah. Free yourself. from the prison of self.